Okay, cool. All right. So thank you guys for joining. This is kind of a continuation of our last training session that we had. Was it 2 weeks ago? A week ago? Um, this one mainly focuses on the basics of SoQL, but I think since we have an hour, if there are other burning questions that you have about SoQL or something related to that, we can totally go through it. Um, but I kind of wanted to walk you guys through some of the basic functionality that we use, other users use on a daily basis. So let me share my screen. And again, please stop me if you guys have questions. Um, you know, More than happy to field those. Um, oh yeah, so on the agenda, I just wanted to open it up and make sure I answer any questions from the last session if you guys had it. Um, if not, then we can go ahead. But yeah, this is an open floor at the moment to see if you guys have any follow-ups. If not, we can go ahead.
I think
No
I'm good.
questions from me.
Okay, yeah, I figured just, wanted to make sure. Okay, again, so this should look familiar. It's the homepage. We'll go ahead and step through some of the agenda here. So what I'll do is I'll bring up the all projects data set. And we're going to start with just looking at the query editor. And again, this should look familiar to some of you guys, but kind of want to step through every part of the process here. So we'll open the data set. This is a little different, actually. The layout, they just changed it like last week, I think. So instead of seeing like the data table down here, now you have to scroll over or, hit this data button here at the top left, and you'll see the whole data set. Anyway, sorry, I'll go back. So what we want to do is basically show you the query editor. So what we'll do is go up to actions and just hit query data. And we're going to use this data set as like our base for a couple of the SoQL functions here. Sorry, let me back up. So SoQL is basically a querying language. It's very, very similar to SQL, and it's used to query data within Socrata. It's not as robust as SQL, but it generally follows the same guidelines and has the same very, very similar functionality. And so we use that to create derived views, to filter the data, to just basically see data how we want to see it and filter it the way we want to filter it. And so I'll go into this next. Yeah. So what you're looking at here again is the exploration canvas. You can do a lot of things. You can filter it by just adding these filters. You can do joins if you want to. And I'm going to go over the SoQL version, but I'll probably do a quick demo here with the joins after that. But if you go all the way down here to the bottom left, you'll see these two like almost look like parentheses, little arrows here. So I'll open this up so it looks a little better. So down here is this SoQL editor. And then up here is the table. So once we make edits to the SoQL editor and run it, you'll see this table adjusts, right? So this should look familiar to a SQL kind of query. There's always a select statement, and then you have the columns under that, right? So you'll see every column is separated by a comma, and except for the last one here there's no comma because that's the last column. So what we'll do is, so right now, if I run this, go back up, it's going to be the same table, right? There's nothing changed. We didn't change it. So let's say we want to get rid of a bunch of these columns here. Just highlight them, delete. And so it'll tell you right now, if you scroll up a little bit, it should give you an indication, right? And it's not going to run. It's not going to compile because we have this comma here, right? So like I mentioned, the last column that we have should not have a comma following it. So now we should be ready to rock and roll. It's a success. So we hit run. it'll compile a query, and then you'll notice that the last row web link should be down here. So again, very, very simple. We just delete columns. In the simplest sense, that's running a SoQL query, right? It's pretty straightforward. And so that's basically what we do. That's the simplest form of, hey, I have a data set. I don't want to see all these columns. Let's try just deleting them in a view here and see what it looks like, right? And so with that, that's how you kind of like make a data set smaller, or just see the columns that you want to see. It just makes it easier for users to do it that way. I mean, you can hide columns in other ways, but this is just one of the ways here. So does that make sense? I think it should make sense to most of you guys, but I just wanted to make sure.
Yep, makes sense.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks.
Yep. So next, we'll go into joins. So joining is basically when you have two data sets, and let's say you have data set A and you have data set B, and you want to get information from a couple columns, right? Like if you want two columns from data set B and just slap them or join them into the first data set A, that would be a left join. And then you could do the opposite. So you could have information from data set A and join that into data set B, and that would be a right join. If you wanted to do a full join, that would be just compiling both data sets into one, regardless of if the data matches and whatnot. So we don't really use that. I mean, 9 times out of 10, we use a left join. So I'll go through that right now. I'm actually going to delete a couple columns. It's going to look better if I do it that way. Just for spacing. And sorry, here. Should look a little bit better. That's better. So to perform a join in SoQL, we're gonna tab down a couple rows. And like I said, we usually do a left join. So we're gonna do left outer join. And you'll notice that the words light up. So if it's lit up in like this reddish tint here, you know that you have the right indicator. So what we're going to do is so for example, this is data set A, the one that we're using here, right? Data set B is the one we want to join in. So data set B, I'm going to go ahead and just join in some geometry, right? So some route geometry. So to do that, we need a couple things, right? We need the indicator here, the statement. We need a unique identifier of data set B for the data that we want to join in. And then we need a linking, like a connector, right? Like how are we going to link both tables together, basically on what field, right? So we'll go back to data set B, and the unique identifier for each data set, you'll see if you look in the URL here, is this, it's called a 4x4. So it's 4 characters with a divider here, a hyphen by 4 other characters, right? So we'll copy that. We'll go back to our data set here, and we'll reference that data set B with an @ sign. Okay. So now we have our left join. We have the data set B here. We need to call it something, because we can't just go ahead and add the column in here. Like it wouldn't make sense to add in columns from column B or from data set B into data set A without kind of distinguishing between the two data sets, if that makes sense. It'll make sense in a second. So what we'll do is we'll call it as geo, right? So we're naming this data set having a tag of @geo, right? So it'll make more sense in a second. And then, like I said, we need to add in how we're going to link the two together. So we'll do on @geo dot, and then if you look in here, the columns, there is a project ID column, right? And then if you look in here in the base data set, or data set A, there's also project ID. So those are going to be the fields that we link on, right? So it's going to be at projects, project ID, and then an equal sign, and then project ID. So as I was writing this whole thing, you saw that there was that big red error line down here, and it was also giving you errors up here, saying that we couldn't compile it unless we had all the parts of the statement. So now that we do have all those parts, right, it should compile. And so although we haven't added in the column yet from dataset B, I always like to test it. And so once we have a good join, we'll just hit run. Obviously not going to see any errors because it just prompts you with a success here. So now we have the opportunity to join and add in these columns from dataset B. So what I'll do, if I'll add it, we can add the columns anywhere you want, but I always like to tack them onto the bottom. So we'll just do a comma, space to another line. And then again, we have to call out the dataset B. So we call it geo dot, and then we'll call in, I think it's lane C lines. Yeah. Okay. So we're just basically pulling in a column name here. Lane C lines as, and you can name it as lane C lines, because if you don't, it'll just show up as, if you don't add this part here, it'll just show up as at geo.laneClines. Here, I'll show you right now. You run it, you scroll over. You don't have that thing. Okay, that's new. You always have to do that. Apologies. But I'll do it anyway, just creature of habit. Run it again. You'll see the column name is the same because it references the one from dataset B. Right? So if we go back, you'll see that, again, this lane C lines was added to the data set. And so you have geometry for these project IDs here. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah.
Is there something that jumps out as not fully, that you don't fully understand, Rosie? I
I
can
just
run.
gotta remember like what to copy and paste
Sure.
from the link. Yeah. But I think it's okay.
Okay. I mean, and also I have documentation that will run through this same thing here, this same procedure, and it has more, like, it has steps basically to it. And so I think the biggest thing is, once you've identified the join, just making sure you have the right 4x4. And you do this a couple times, it becomes, second nature. It's pretty easy. So to go further, in our agenda, we want to go through where statements. Actually, sorry, let me back up. I'm going to go here and show you how to do a join. Oh, it does it for you. Perfect. See, this new canvas is amazing. So what happened here, I did a join, right? We did a join, left join here. You go in here, it already, makes that for you. So that's nice. So it pulls in the correct data set B, the geometry data set. It knows what kind of join you want to do. And then it tells you on what column. So boom, the join's already done. If you wanted to, in the beginning, before we even went to this canvas, you could have done the join with this. So it'll ask you for what data set, so data set B basically, and then we'll kind of join. There's a couple of joins here, right? And then again, what columns you want to join on, if you didn't want to do it the SoQL way, right? So there's two different ways to do it. So then once we have that, we'll jump into where statements. So where statements are basically ways you can query down or filter down the data set even more, right? So for example, we have our data set here. It looks great. Thank goodness it looks good. Everything ran, everything compiled, but we want to see, I'll actually add another field here. Sorry. Is county. So it makes sense. Oh, it's already in there. I apologize. This is the, yep, column I'm referencing. So that runs. So now we're going to see, okay, I want to see all the projects where I want to see all county projects. So the column is county project should equal true in here. So what we'll do is we want to go where, and I like to just do capital. Where is county project equals true. And so we usually just do parentheses, or not parentheses, quotations. Then you can just type in true. So that's good to go. You can hit run. That'll run. It'll also highlight the column that you called out here. And then as you can see, it'll only provide the rows where is county project is true. And then you'll see down here another indicator is the number of rows will change because it has filtered down from the original number of rows. So if you want to take it further, there's a bunch of different ways that you can write where clauses. Again, we're doing basic ones for now, but again, if you guys have questions, we can always run through some other examples. But you can keep tacking on, right? Filter criteria. So let's say I want to see where is county project is true, and then I also want to see where the substantial completion date is filled in or not null, right? So we'll go calculated substantial complete, and then we'll say is not null. So basically has data filled in there for each line, right? So that looks like it'll compile. So we'll hit run. And also you can run filters, like you can do where clauses for columns that are not in your query, right? So you guys don't see it's calculated substantial complete is not in here, but you can still filter the data set by that information. So let's say, you have a data set where you only need a certain number of columns, like maybe you only need the first 4 columns, but you still want to see the data filtered by substantial completion. Calculated substantial completion is not null, right? So you can still do that. It's not going to give you any errors. So once we do that, let me run it again just to make sure. So I think we had 313. Now we're down to 116. So that just shows you that it has filtered even further than the previous one. And then there's a lot of other indicators, and I'll send along the Socrata 101 page, the training page, but there are other indicators like or. You could do or here, and you could do and an or are the main ones, but you can do other indicators like greater than or equal to, that sort of thing. If you do absolutes, it has to be true, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that you can slice and slice this thing. So we'll just do that. But again, this is a basic use of the where clause. Let's see. That should be pretty straightforward. Are there any questions from that? Okay.
No
I'll take the
questions.
questions. So the next one we're going to go over is the order by. So the order by is basically, I want to see everything in this data set ordered by, project ID or federal ID, something like that. So what we'll do is we'll add in. Actually, we're gonna for this example we're gonna do responsible person. So basically, what you do is you call in the statement, so order by, and then we'll pick responsible person. So go up, it's compiling, should be good to go. We'll hit run, and you'll see it's going to order it by alphabetically, right? So Alan is the first name here, and then it'll go down B, C, D, that sort of thing. So you can do an order by, and then you can also specify, okay, do I want to order it descending or ascending, so you can do, or ASC is ascending, hit run. That's going to be like that. And then you can do descending. Yep. And then hit run. And it'll start from the blanks, actually. So then because there might be some blank responsible persons here. And then, so it'll start from the W. So you can kind of just play with that. Or if you don't want, you just want ascending, you just keep it blank. Again. They're pretty basic. That's the two statements you can make for order by. I don't usually use it that much, but it's definitely very helpful if you're trying to see things ordered by alphabetically, right? So definitely helpful. Next, we'll go into group by. So grouping is basically you're taking data, and let's say you have data for years, right? So you have years for different project IDs ranging from 2012 to 2023, but you have multiple line items for each project ID, right? So you can have 10 line items for 2012 because there are different project IDs, and then you want to, combine them or group them, right? So I'll go to another statement here, or another data set, just to give you guys an idea of what this is. So we have financial data, right? So we want all of the revenues or all the transaction amounts for by year, right? We want to group them by year. So basically, previously the underlying data set would have many, many, many line items or many transaction line items in the year 2012, right? But we just want to see the overall total for 2012 and 2013 and so on. So what we've done here, and I'll put that on so it looks better. Right. So two things you need. You need an aggregation function, so a sum, a min, a max, an average, that sort of thing, and that's basically denoted by, in this example, it's sum and then parentheses around the column that you want to sum, right, or total, and then you can add an as and then the name of the column if you want to rename it, right? So in this case, we have fiscal year, and then we have two columns, right? Fiscal year and then trans amount. We've already summed trans amount, so that's your aggregation function. And then we need to specify what we want to group by, right? So we've summed up all these trans amounts, and then we want to group this whole data set by year. So we'll take the fiscal year column and then plot that into a group by right here. So then we'll hit run, and it'll compile something like this. And so it'll give you totals for each year. Again, pretty basic, but that's mainly how we use the group by function. Trying to think how else we've used it in the past. We've grouped things by island, by person, like responsible person, that sort of thing. So there's a bunch of different ways you can use it, but this, I think, highlights the main way we use this sort of function. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Oh, hey, Maza. Didn't know you jumped on. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
Yeah. Rosemary, were you trying to say something?
Oh no, I was just saying yes.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so I'll move on. The next thing I want to talk about is the case statement. And I'll just basically say case statement is like a if-then statement, right? So it'll make more sense if I go into here. And so I'll show you what I'm talking about with this example, but we can also run through it, right? So we'll go to edit this query. This is just one example of where we've used it. So this is just crash data from Shaka. And so if you scroll down, I'll pull this up a bit more. So basically what we wanted to do is create a case statement for data within here, right? So we have days of the week for this example down here, right? Days of the week, they're abbreviated, right? So W is Wednesday, TH is Thursday, Sunday, Monday, that sort of thing. But we wanted to kind of order the days and see when the most crashes happened, what day of the week, right? So for this example, you'll see this case statement right here, right? I'll highlight that. It's basically saying, I want to see when occur date is equal to MO, make sure it says to Monday. So basically just Monday, right? So writing it out. We've created another column called day flag. And so it looks at this occur day column. You set it to MO, whatever day it is, and then it reads out kind of or spits out what you want it to say. So I'll scroll over here, down here, and it spits out exactly what it says in the case statement. So you can write a bunch of these, right? So everything from each day of the week, and what we've done here is that sort of thing. And again, it's like an if statement. So if occur date is equal to MO, set it to Monday. If occur day is equal to TU, set it to Tuesday, and so on. So that's just one simple way that we used it. And here, actually, for crashes, there's peak travel times. So there's AM peak travel times and PM peak travel times. And so for the time column, we have over here occur time. Scroll over. This column here, right? So basically what we're saying is if occur time is between 06 and 10, set that flag column to AM peak, right? So we want to filter the data set later on by these two, AM peak or PM peak, right? So we just wanted to create a column that provides that. And so it's easier to filter off of. So it's just two expressions here. So again, if it's between 15 and 19, we call it PM peak. And so if you scroll over to the right side, because we put these case statements towards the bottom of the list here, you'll see AM peak and PM peak somewhere here. Yep. We've also done time. So again, there's a lot of time in here, right? So you can also do case statements where the date is greater than 2015, right? So show me, I want to set something to where the date is greater than 2015 or something like that. So we've done it that way, but this just helps. We've used this in scenarios where we need to filter data sets a little bit easier. So for example, I just want to capture all the information between these 2 points, right? So instead of having to go through the data set and filter through each one and select everything from 00 to all the way to almost 7 o'clock, this makes it easier, and you can just add in a designation for that time period, if you will. So it's definitely helped us kind of filter through data sets and made making visualizations easier, I would say. So case statements are very, very critical, and they've helped us a lot.
Tom, hold on, right there where it says between 18 and 24:59. That should be 23.
Oh, sorry. Good catch, Melissa. Thank you, sir.
Okay, well, probably doesn't matter. There's probably no number 24, but yeah.
Thank you. So does that make sense, guys? Does that kind of, do you guys understand that? Again, there's a lot of ways that you can create case statements, but these are just some of the most recent ways we've used case statements.
Sorry, Tom, one of the things that I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good construction. And for example, if you test a negative, then the next one you can just say, I mean, anything that does not include in that, you can put either a true, like if you don't have another option, just if you are checking for one condition, you can just say, if it is this condition, then the next one would be just, if it's not that condition, then you can just put in a true, right, Tom?
Yes.
You can put in a true, and then the next one will be whatever else the default would be, right? And in case you are just checking for wanting, for example, a column is null, and you want to test for null. If it is not null, give it this. But if it is, then the next one would be, instead of saying, oh, if it is null, you can just say true, comma, and then the whatever you want to say for that, or something like that. That's, I find that the true and false variable, it's like a true and false. It's the logical word is, you can just put in a true right there at the end. Occur time instead of that. I mean, I just say that anything else true, then no time data. Wouldn't that work there? If you say, instead of occur time dot or something like that, if you just say now anything else at the end, all the way at the bottom, where it says occur time at the bottom, where see if you get rid of that, instead of occur time, just say true now, comma, evening, comma, and then true. No, just no, not occur time true, just put in a true only.
Okay.
The word true there. And I think it might need, it should recognize, put a capital T. It should recognize, I think, yeah. So if it is true, then yeah, it should work.
Yeah.
So whenever there is no data time, it should be, it should show, yeah. So you could do something like that, I think.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Maza.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very, I mean, it's pretty versatile. You know, it's not. Sorry.
One other thing, Tom, is how would you want to do comments here?
Yep, I was just about to go into that.
Okay. All
Yep,
right.
so,
thanks.
No, thank you. Yeah, so as Maza was saying, we can add comments just like any other development language. It's helpful to have comments to see, you know, why did we write this case statement, or, you know, what have you. So to add comments, you can add them anywhere you want. So here we'll just go to the next line, and to denote a comment, right, it's just 2 hyphens. And then you can go ahead and add your comment. So this is a comment for case statements. And obviously you would want to have, you know, more descriptive information here, but this is just an example. And you can just keep going. So as long as you have these little hyphens here, you can write whatever you want. And it will compile.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, of course. No, thank you for bringing it up, Maza. This has been, you know, very nice. It had, you know, for, I will say, since the beginning of the project, you know, we didn't really know they had the comment feature until we had to ask support. So this has definitely been helpful. We document certain SoQL queries and whatnot. It's just helpful for anyone looking at it, right? So, you know, in case you're trying to figure out what this query means, hopefully someone left comments, and it'll make it easier for someone that's trying to figure out what's going on. So I can actually leave this in here. run it again, and then once you're done, you can just hit update. For example, because we edited a already made query here, right? So we'll just hit update. Display that. Continue. And then it'll publish. So I know, we still have, 23 minutes left, but that's all I had for the agenda. I wanted to open it up to you guys to see, if you had any specific questions or if something didn't make sense, we can kind of go over it again. But yeah, I'm just leaving some time for you guys to, it's like an open floor. So feel free to talk it through.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of zoned out when Maza chimed in, but could you go over with the true in that case statement again? Yeah, my brain just kind of farted when you guys were talking about it.
No worries.
Yeah.
Let me go back into that.
It kind of sounded like you guys made it like a catch-all for when there was no data in
Exactly.
that column.
That's basically it. Yeah. So
Okay.
for here, let's say occur time is what? I don't know, 0, 0. Okay. Then we could tack on a true, and then if it's not, you just at the end it would go through this whole sequence here. And if it's true, sure, then it'll take this. If it's not, then you just tack on false. At the end, it's catch all. You're right. That's basically it. Does that make
Oh,
sense,
sorry.
Doug?
I was I don't know, I'm just a little confused on. So if the wouldn't it be false though if the
Yeah,
column is
that was
in?
just an example we had.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, that
I
was
was
just
just
for
I was just
example
I
purposes.
was thinking it's
It,
normally.
it is anything else that is true. Yeah, the thing is anything else that's true after that, it means it's the default catch-all. To say it's false means, I mean, I don't think that's that I don't think it matters, but true should be the one. Now, true means anything else except the above. Because as of, if you look at if statements, it will, it's going from the top down, checking. It will always enter into the criteria where it fulfills. Now, the last one is else, right? In an if statement. And else means that's anything else. So that's what, okay, through, go in here. So I think that's what, check out, I mean, it's not going to have a problem. I think it will be, but ordinarily true is the right thing. If you go and look at all the way with it actually, because false could mean skip it. Can you go and find out if no time data is there? I use true, but it probably may not matter. Yeah, no date, no time data, so probably does not matter. It should be true. Anything else, meaning else, that is by default. It's really else is true. That's the structure. So
Yeah, so Mazu, basically what you're saying is that true keyword is to catch values that are outside of the above statements, like
yeah,
between
Correct.
0 and 2359. I was just trying to wonder how, if you could capture like empty columns or like where there's no value
You could
in
do
the
if no.
term. It'd be null? Okay.
Yeah,
no,
so
yeah,
you would do where occurred time equals, or I'm sorry, where occur time is, I'll just do it right here, is null. That sort of thing. That would be your line item.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
And you could do is null, is not null, that sort of thing. Both ways, yeah. Good question. Are there any other questions in the group? I know this is, again, somewhat basic, but we have other documentation if you want to run through it again, that should be helpful. And then I can also, what I can do after the meeting is also send over some more Socrata documentation that they have on their side, that would dive a little deeper into each of these statements. That makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like a documentation on like the SoQL
Yeah.
keywords and all that.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Of course. Do you want me to, would it help? I don't know how often you reference the 101 pages, but would you want me to put that in there? Would that help? I mean, I'll send it to you after this, but maybe I'll kind of create a link in that story just so it has all of the other Socrata query information.
That actually sounds like a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And one more, Tom, one more thing was, how about also information column, metadata information on the SoQL?
You mean what do you mean? Sorry.
SoQL, like, for the SoQL column, you
Yeah.
information
Oh,
that
yeah.
is metadata information.
Sure. So we have time flag here, right? We've created that new column. When you hit, well, actually, we'll go back to the manager. That'll make more sense. So down here, we'll go to column metadata. And so since we just created these new columns, we have to give them descriptions, right? So the week flag, that sort of thing. So, and then also here, right, it'll say it's created by a SoQL query. And that's not really that helpful to someone trying to look at the data. So this would be like a time of day, right? That sort of thing. So yeah, just basically adding more information to the columns that you just created will be helpful for others. Is that what you were referencing, Maza?
Yes, and can you
Perfect.
actually do that? Would you be able to see it in the SoQL query if you do edit the query? Now go to the SoQL.
I think if you click on the if you click on
Yeah. On that one, it will show up. Yeah.
It's showing up here. I'll look into that, guys. But usually, if you hover over, if you click on it, it should give you like the data type and the description for the column. I know in here it does, right? If you, it'll give you the description if you kind of look in here. But I'll double back and make sure when you hover over it. Oh, okay. There's something down here. There it is, showing up. That's weird. So if you see that little box that just came up, it'll give you the name of the column, and then the column type. So it's a number for the reference distance. That sort of thing. Yeah, it's weird. It's just a little funky thing that's going on with Socrata right now. But yeah, it gives you some
Thanks.
information. Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions, guys?
I think I'm good.
Well, if there are no other questions, I'll give you guys about 14 minutes back. again, I'll go ahead and send out some other documentation, and then what we talked about, Desmond, I'll just post it on the Socrata 101 page. I'll probably just post one page, and it has links to every single statement you'd want or query that you'd want to use. So it should be easy doing it that way.
Sorry, did you do current date?
I talked about it, I
You
believe.
talked about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The date, the function.
Yes. For
Okay.
case statements, you're talking about, Mazza, right?
No, actually, if you want to show the current date, today's date and stuff like that.
We did not talk about that.
Okay, so
You wanna give an
that
overview?
function get UTC, the get UTC
Oh, yeah.
date. I think that's so useful if you want to do comparison, date comparisons and stuff like that. That would be a good thing to create a current date, today's date. So you know, so that date will always be updated. So I mean, I know you use that, Tom, I'm sure, to be able
Not as
to.
often, but
Not
yeah.
okay. Well, yeah, you know that I like that, because in the past we had to manually update dates, but now there is a ability to actually requery the current date. And if you want to do any date comparisons, for example, how do you know where there are projects that were 2 years old or 6 months before the POP date and stuff like that? You have to use the current date and compare the POP date, and you know how far how long it is before POP expires, or how long has it expired and stuff like that. So that date is important. It's good to date comparison. And maybe I know maybe you can have another class, Tom, that you can do with date comparisons, and I think that would be a useful thing. Maybe at our meeting, we'll have to have you over so you can show that in our meeting. That's an important item that we normally use a lot. Dates are date calculation. Sometimes the Socrata itself has certain limitations on date conversion and this and that, but I know you know better than I. So anyway, I think it's worth looking at,
Yes.
and maybe you could do that another time.
Sure. Yeah, that totally agree, Mazza. Yeah, we can totally set up time
Yeah.
For whoever wants to talk about date comparisons and how we handle dates and so cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right, guys. Well, if there's no other questions, I will give you back some time. I appreciate you guys jumping on.
Thank you very much, Sam.
No,